All right, strap yourselves in for today's deep dive. We're going all in on MCX, the multi-commodity exchange of India. Their newest annual report, hot off the press for fiscal year 2023-24, is, well, let's just say it's a lot more interesting than your typical financial report.
Way more interesting. Most annual reports, they're about as exciting as watching paint dry. But this one's got some real gems in it.
Yeah.
We're talking about a company right at the center of India's commodity market, and that market, my friend, it is booming.
Exactly. And that's why we're here. We're not just crunching numbers. We're trying to figure out the whole story behind MCX, the good, the bad, and of course those big strategic moves that could either make them soar or send them, in the other direction.
It's like we're putting a puzzle together, but instead of pieces, we've got balance sheets and risk assessments.
Love that analogy. So let's zoom out for a second, get the big picture first. The report paints this super dynamic picture of the commodity derivatives market in India and MCX. They're right in the middle of it all, leading the pack as India's top platform for commodity derivatives trading.
Right, and this report, it's not just about where they are now. It gives us hints about where they're going. Did you see the government just increase the number of commodities that can be traded on these exchanges?
Oh, yeah. Huge jump.
From 91 to 104. That's a lot of new possibilities.
104. Wow, that's like an entire grocery store of investment options. What are some of the newcomers, though? What can people trade now that they couldn't before?
Oh, it's a real mix. But the one that really jumped out at me was alloys. They're now included under metals. That's significant, I think.
How so?
Well, it tells me they're trying to really, broaden the playing field, attract new investors, and potentially bump up those trading volumes.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Okay, so the market's growing. There's all this new stuff to trade. Seems like good news for MCX, right? But let's get into the nitty-gritty. How is their bottom line looking? What stood out to you when you first dug into the financials?
Well, first thing I noticed, kind of mixed bag. Total income up compared to the previous year, always a good sign.
Okay.
But their net profit, it actually went down.
Hold on. Revenue's up, but profit's down. We've definitely got to unpack that one. What's going on there? Are they just spending a ton more money, or is there something else we're missing?
It's a few things, really, but it does point to how MCX makes its money, They rely a lot on those transaction fees, clearing and settlement charges, too. And then, of course, income from their IT stuff and the infrastructure services they provide.
Okay, I'm following.
So even if trading volume goes up, if their expenses are rising even faster, the profits can take a hit.
Like a restaurant, right? They sell more dishes, but if their food costs go crazy, suddenly they're not making as much.
Perfect analogy. And that's exactly the question, isn't it? What are these rising expenses? Smart investments that'll pay off later? Or are we seeing some red flags here?
Okay, we'll have to dig into that. But before we go full-on forensic accountant, and there's this whole leadership shuffle I can't ignore. The report gets into the process of finding a new CEO. And honestly, it sounds like a wild ride. They had to redo the entire selection.
Definitely caught my attention, too. And then there's the new CEO's compensation package. Pravina Rai, right? Half of her performance-based pay, the variable part, gets deferred. For 3 years, that's unusual.
50% for 3 years. Wow. Feels like they're really tying her success to the long game here. What's the strategy there, do you think? Vote of confidence? A way to keep her eyes on the long-term prize?
It's all about incentives, making sure her goals and the company's goals are aligned. You see this a lot with CEOs, especially when a company is facing some, bumps in the road or trying to reinvent themselves.
Makes sense. So they're basically saying, we're committed to the future and we want you to be too.
Exactly. It's a pretty clear message about priorities.
Okay. New CEO. Interesting compensation. But the report doesn't shy away from the risks MCX is up against either. They dedicated a whole section to it, and that list is long. Regulatory scrutiny, competition getting fiercer, reliance on technology, cyber threats even. They even mentioned the global economy and how those crazy commodity prices can swing things.
It's a comprehensive list, and I actually think that's good. They're acknowledging the challenges, not pretending they don't exist. The key is how they handle them. Some risks are just part of the business. You manage them with strong compliance, risk mitigation, but others, they come from outside. You got to be more adaptable, think on your feet.
So not just spotting the risks, but figuring out how to handle them. Of all the ones they listed, though, which ones make you, nervous? The ones that could really shake things up for MCX?
For me, it's cybersecurity. MCX relies heavily on technology and a major attack. That could cripple their systems. We're talking financial losses, damage to their reputation, the whole 9 yards.
Cybersecurity is like the monster under the bed for any company these days. But MCX knows this, right? They talk about investing in security in the report. What makes you worried about it, specifically?
The thing is, those cyber threats, they never stop evolving. Yeah, MCX has invested in security measures like a security operations center that's always watching, always ready to respond. But the hackers, they're always coming up with new tricks. It's a never-ending arms race.
That's a scary thought. Trying to build a fortress while the enemy keeps inventing new weapons. So it's not just about the money they've spent. It's about staying ahead of the game, adapting.
Absolutely. Their cybersecurity strategy needs to be just as dynamic as the threats they face. Always learning, always adapting, and investing in the latest technologies, the best people.
All right, that's a little sobering, but let's switch gears for a minute and talk about the future. MCX is laying out some pretty ambitious plans for growth. They're talking about expanding their product offerings, investing even more in tech, and focusing on educating investors about this whole world of commodity derivatives. What do you think? Are they on the right track, or are they missing a big opportunity here?
The strategies themselves, solid, I'd say, line up with what we're seeing in the market as a whole. But here's the thing. It all comes down to execution. The competition is fierce. MCX can't just sit back and relax. Investors, they need to keep a close eye on those key performance indicators.
So what should they be watching?
Are trading volumes going up? Are new products hitting the market? And maybe most important, are they winning that cybersecurity battle?
So it's not just about having a plan. It's about proving you can actually make it happen. And for our listeners, what's the one big takeaway they should get from this part of our dive into MCX?
Well, I think it's this. MCX is at a turning point. They're in a strong position, but they've got some serious obstacles to overcome. Think of it like a speedboat racing through rough waters. Exciting, yeah, but there are risks involved.
So buckle up, hold on tight, and keep your eyes on the horizon.
You got it. And don't forget your life jacket.
Welcome back, everyone. Still with us on this MCX journey. Good! Because we're just getting to the good stuff. Last time, remember, we covered their financials, the new CEO situation, the risks they're facing. Now, let's talk about something investors are really starting to care about. ESG. You know, the whole environmental, social, and governance thing.
Yeah, ESG. It's not just a buzzword anymore. Investors are really looking at this stuff when they're deciding where to put their money. And MCX, well, they're definitely aware of it. A big chunk of their report is dedicated to their business responsibility and sustainability report, I think it was called.
So they're not just saying they care, they're actually putting it in black and white. But what are they actually doing? What initiatives are they highlighting?
It's a pretty broad range, honestly. Reducing their environmental impact, for sure. But they're also talking about diversity and inclusion within the company, supporting community projects, too, and a big emphasis on transparency, stakeholder engagement. Those are important.
Yeah, got to build that trust, right. So they're covering a lot of bases. But the thing that really stood out to me was their focus on investor education, specifically when it comes to ESG.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Well, they're not just saying, hey, we're the good guys, trust us. They're actually trying to teach investors about sustainable investing, like how to think about ESG when they're making their own decisions.
I see. That's smart. Investors these days, they're savvier. They want more than just a good return. They want to know their money's going to companies that are doing the right thing.
Exactly. So it's not just about being a responsible company. It's about helping investors be responsible too.
Like they're saying, hey, come along with us on this ESG journey.
Love that. Okay, so MCX is checking those ESG boxes. But let's circle back to their growth strategies for a minute. They're talking about new products, more tech investment, investor education. But with all those risks we talked about, are they being bold enough? Or are they missing something big here?
Tough question. I mean, the strategies themselves are fine, but, the devil's in the details. Execution is everything.
Okay, so what should we be looking for? How do we know if they're on the right path?
Well, keep an eye on those key performance indicators we talked about. Trading volume, for one. New investors coming on board. Are they launching exciting, innovative products? And are they staying ahead of those cyber threats?
So it's a bit of a high wire act. They've got to stay balanced, but they also need to keep moving forward.
Exactly. And that's where all those tech investments come in. They're putting a lot of resources into upgrading their systems, and they're building this whole new commodity derivatives platform.
So a shiny new spaceship to navigate this increasingly crazy market.
Something like that. Plus, they're betting on the power of education. As the commodity derivatives market grows in India, They need more investors, right? But those investors need to understand what they're getting into.
So it's not just about attracting investors, it's about preparing them, giving them the knowledge and the tools they need to succeed.
Makes sense. Responsible approach, I'd say. It's not just about growth for growth's sake. It's about building a system where everyone can win, the company and the investors.
Okay, so we've covered a lot, from ESG to growth strategies and all the things that could go wrong along the way. What's the one big thing you want our listeners to take away from this part of the deep dive?
For me, it's this. MCX, they're in transition. It's a dynamic market, constantly evolving, and they're taking some big swings. Could pay off big, could, well, let's just say it's a bit of a gamble.
Ooh, suspenseful.
Mhm.
So what should our listeners be watching for? What are the telltale signs that MCX is truly on the path to success?
Remember those key performance indicators. Those are your guideposts. Trading volumes up, new investors, innovative products, and of course, winning that cybersecurity battle. Those are the things to watch.
So it's like we're giving everyone a scorecard to track their progress. But beyond that, what about the bigger picture? What trends, what developments out there could impact MCX's future, for better or worse?
Well, regulations are always a wild card, a big change there. That can throw everything off. And then there's the global economy. Commodity prices, they're like a roller coaster. If the economy takes a hit, that's going to affect MCX too.
So they're not just sailing their own ship, they're also at the mercy of the wind and the waves.
Exactly. They got to be ready to adapt, to adjust their sails. But that's what makes this whole thing so interesting, right? We're not looking at a still photo. We're seeing a company in motion, making big bets, taking risks, trying to make their mark on the world.
All right, everyone, that wraps up part 2 of our MCX adventure, but stick around for part 3. We're going to dive into the big question, the one that'll really make you think about the future of MCX and the whole Indian commodity market. Don't miss it. All right, deep divers, we're in the home stretch now, the final part of our MCX exploration. And I got to say, I'm really looking forward to wrapping things up with, well, a little bit of a mind bender. We've talked about their numbers, their ESG stuff, how they plan to grow, even all the things that could trip them up along the way. But there's this one question that's been kind of bugging me. Curious to get your take on it.
Lay it on me. What's got you thinking?
So remember how the report talks a lot about investor education? All those programs, campaigns, the whole shebang. They really want people to understand commodity derivatives. But how do they actually know it's working? I mean, how can they be sure investors are actually getting it? Especially those new folks, the ones who are just starting out.
Yeah. That's a good question. It's one thing to offer all these resources, courses, whatever, but are they actually making a difference? Do people actually learn from it and, make better decisions because of it? That's the real test.
Right. Like, imagine you're teaching a cooking class. You can show people how to chop veggies, how to make a sauce, but how do you know they're actually going home and cooking better meals?
Love that analogy, and it really gets at the heart of it. MCX, sure, they can track how many people sign up for their programs or get those certifications, but those are just numbers, The real question is, did those people actually change how they think about investing? Are they more confident, less likely to make, rookie mistakes? That's a lot harder to measure.
So how do they figure that out? How do they go beyond just giving people information and actually empower them, make them smarter investors?
It's tricky, no doubt. But there are a few things that could help. First off, the content itself, it's got to be good, engaging, easy to understand no matter what your experience level is, no more boring lectures or jargon that nobody understands.
Make it fun, make it stick. I'm with you. What else?
They got to make it interactive, too. Get people involved, not just talking at them. Workshops, maybe, simulations, case studies even. And what about online forums where investors can connect, share their experiences?
Building a community, not just a classroom. I like that.
Exactly. And the last thing, they need to find ways to actually measure the impact of all this, not just how many people showed up. Do surveys, talk to investors, maybe even look at the trading data and see if people are making better choices.
So close the loop, see what's working, what's not, then adjust and improve.
Spot on. Investor education isn't a one-time thing. It's a constant process. Always got to be refining, improving, adapting.
Okay, lots of great ideas here. But for our listeners, for everyone who's been with us on this deep dive, what's the one question you want to leave them with? Something that'll really make them think about the future of MCX and this whole commodity market in India.
Well, here's one that's been on my mind. As more and more people get involved in commodity derivatives and the market keeps growing, can MCX find that sweet spot? Where they're encouraging growth, but they're also protecting investors. Can they create a market that's good for everyone, where nobody gets left behind?
That's a great question. It's about sustainability, but not just the environment kind. It's about building a market that's healthy, where everyone can thrive.
Exactly. And it goes beyond MCX, really. It's something the whole industry needs to think about. As this market keeps evolving, it's exciting, sure, but it's got its risks too.
Absolutely. Lots to think about. And for anyone who wants to dig even deeper into MCX, check out the show notes for a link to their full report. There's a ton of info in there. It's worth a look.
And as you're reading it, keep that question in mind. There's no easy answer, but it's the kind of question that'll shape the future for MCX and for the whole market.
All right, that's a wrap for our MCX deep dive, folks. Thanks for joining us. Hope you found it insightful. Maybe you learned a thing or two, and hopefully you've got some food for thought. Until next time, happy investing.